Shalom, shalom, Mishpaka. Shalom to my family worldwide on this Yom. Buka Tube to you. Buka Tube to the whole entire house. All 12 tribes of the house of Yaakov. YAHUAH'S, Prince of Alua. Shalom, shalom to you worldwide, wherever you may be. Wherever you may be on this Yom, I pray the very barakah of Yah and the very shalom of Yah permeates your homes, permeates your family, and permeates throughout your very being. Shalom, shalom to you, to both the older brother, Yehudah, the younger brother, Ephraim, and to those who were formerly known as strangers, Gers, Goy, Goyim, nations, Gentiles, but having engrafted into the house of Yasharal, you are no longer a stranger, you're no longer a Gentile, but indeed a fellow citizen, and indeed privy to the same covenants, promise, and inheritance that was given to Yasharal and to Yasharal alone. Shalom, shalom to you worldwide on this day. Shalom, shalom to you on this preparation Yom, wherever you may be. Shalom to all of my Mishpaka, to all of my Mishpaka. I stopped by on this Yom Mishpaka with a declaration, with a plea, Yahuwah has a plea that he wants heard on this Yom. And that plea is, Ephraim, come home. Ephraim, come home. Ephraim, come home. Come home. A plea is being made on this Yom to you. Ephraim, come home. Come home. And I pray at the conclusion of this video that this word will permeate your very being, Ephraim, will break through the binds, will break through the shackles, will break through the blindness of eye and the deafness of ear, the stiffness of neck, the hardness of heart. That this very word will break through the spells and incantations, Ephraim, that you have been under for a very long time. I pray that this very word will break you from your slumber, will shake you from your sleep, Ephraim, and awaken you out of darkness into the marvelous light of Yahuwah, into the marvelous light of Yahuwah. So I declare in the name of Yahusha, my Hamashiach, awake Ephraim, awake Ephraim. Ephraim, come home. Ephraim, come home. Picking up this very thought, we turn to the book of Lucas, commonly called Luke, 15th chapter, beginning at the 11th verse. A very familiar passage of scripture, a very familiar text that has been taught in churches for millennials, that has been taught in churches for a very long time. Many of us have heard this text. Many of us have heard this text preached from the pulpits of churches. But I declare that if not 100% of the time, at the very least 99% of the time, this text has been misrepresented. It's been falsely spoken. It's been falsely taught. And it's been terribly, terribly mistranslated, such that a terrible, terrible, terrible disservice has been done. A grievous disservice has been done. So Yahuwah wants to set the record straight on this day. And in setting the record straight, he is also making a plea to Ephraim, to Ephraim, to Ephraim. And that plea is, Ephraim, come home. Ephraim, come home. We picked this thought up in the 15th chapter of Lucas, the 11th verse, beginning at the 11th verse, and it reads, "And he said, a certain man had 2 sons. And the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods falling to me. And he divided his livelihood between them. What you need to understand here is that the 2 sons are Ephraim and Yahudah. Ephraim and Yahudah. Ephraim being the younger son. Ephraim being the youngest son of Yahusuf, who the firstborn Barakah was bestowed upon by Yaakov, by the father of Yahusuf. The firstborn Barakah originally belonging to Reuben, but because Reuben defiled his father's bed by sleeping with his half-wife Bilhah, and by uncovering his father's nakedness, the firstborn Barakah then passed from Reuben to Yahusuf, and from Yahusuf, who was given a double portion, to Ephraim. Yahusuf being the 11th born, the 11th son of Yaakov. Yahudah being the 4th born son of Yaakov. Thus Yahudah being the older son, and Yahusuf being the younger son, Ephraim being the younger son. So again it reads, and he said a certain man had 2 sons, Ephraim and Ephraim and Yahudah. And the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the portion of goods falling to me. And he divided his livelihood between them. And not many days after the younger son, having gathered all together, went away to a distant country, and there wasted his goods with his loose living. The possessions that the younger son took were the firstborn Barakah. He took the firstborn Barakah with him. This is his portion. And he took it with him, and he wasted it amongst the nations. The firstborn Barakah is his, and his father gave it to him. He gave him his inheritance. And it reads here that the younger son, having gathered all together, gathered all his possessions, having gathered his inheritance, went away to a distant country, and there wasted his goods with loose living. When we had spent all, there arose a severe scarcity of food throughout that land, and he began to be in need. And he went and joined himself to one of the citizens of that country, and he sent him to the fields to feed pigs. Indeed, a severe famine is coming. Indeed, a severe scarcity of food is coming. It reads in the 6th chapter of Hazum that 1/4 of the earth, 1/4 of the earth is going to perish due to war, famine, disease, and wild beasts of the field. Indeed, a severe scarcity of food is coming. Indeed, a famine is coming. And it reads here, a severe scarcity of food throughout that land rose, and he began to be in need, and he went and joined himself to one of the citizens of that country, and he sent him to his fields to feed swine, to feed pigs. How ironic that he was dwelling amongst swine, that he was dwelling amongst pigs, that he was dwelling amongst the unclean heathen, the unclean pagan, who being without Torah, who being without the word of Yahuwah. It is the word of Yahuwah that cleanses us. It is the word of Yahuwah that sets us apart. It is Torah that teaches us to make a distinction between the clean and the unclean. Thus the heathen, thus the pagans are considered pigs, are considered swine, because they are without Torah, because they neglect the righteous Torah with which we learn to make a distinction between the clean and the unclean. So it is ironic that while dwelling amongst pigs, that while dwelling amongst swine, that he was sent to feed swine, that he was sent to feed pigs. And it reads, and he was longing to fill his stomach with the pods with which the pigs were eating, and no one gave to him. But having come to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have bread enough and to spare, and I am perishing with hunger. Having risen, I shall go to my father and say to him, Father, I have sinned against the Shamayim and before you, and I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants. And having risen, he went to his father. And while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and was moved with compassion, and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against the Shamayim and before you, and I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, bring out the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet. And bring the fattened calf here and slaughter it, and let us eat and rejoice. Because this son of mine was dead. This son of mine was dead and is alive again. And he was lost and is found. And they began to simcha, they began to rejoice. And his older son, Yahudah, who was in the field, and when he came and approached the house, he heard music and dancing. And having called one of the servants, he asked what this meant. And he said to him, your brother has come, and your father has slaughtered the fattened calf, because he received him back in health. And he was robbed, and he would not go in. So his father came out and pleaded with him. And answering, he said to his father, see, these many years I have been serving you, and I have never transgressed the command of yours. But to me you have never given a young goat, so I could simcha with my friends. But when this son of yours came, who has devoured your livelihood, has devoured your firstborn barakah, who has devoured the inheritance with whores, with other mighty ones, with dwelling amongst swine, with dwelling amongst pigs, and living as the heathen and doing as the heathen. But this son of yours, who has devoured your livelihood with whores, you slaughtered the fattened calf for him. Then he said to him, son, you are always with me, and all I have is yours. And we had to simcha and be glad, for your brother was dead and is alive, was lost and is found, was lost and is found. So I say to you, Ephraim, you were lost, you are still lost. You were divorced from our father and from the land in 722 BCE. You were giving a certificate of divorce, and you were sent away to dwell amongst the nations, to dwell amongst the swine, to dwell amongst the pig, to live amongst the nations. And you took the firstborn barakah with you. You took your inheritance with you. You took the inheritance with you because you are the firstborn. You have been dispersed since 722 BCE. And you do not know who you are. You have forgotten who you are. You do not know who you are. You think you're a Christian. You think you're a Buddhist. You think you're a Muslim. You think you're a Gnostic. You think you're agnostic. You think you're a Satanist, a witch, a warlock. You think that you are a heathen. But you have the blood of Ephraim and Yishak and Yaakov coursing through your veins. You just don't know who you are, and you are living amongst the nations as the nation, as heathen, and you're squandering your firstborn barakah. You are squandering your inheritance. But Ephraim, your father, is still standing afar. He is looking to and fro for a heart that's perfect towards him. He is looking to and fro and calling to you, Ephraim, and saying to you, Ephraim, on this Yom, Ephraim, come home. Ephraim, come home. I know that you have lived amongst whores. I know that you have attached yourselves to foreign mighty ones. I know that you have done this. And as it is written, when a Asha is divorced from her husband, if she goes and joins herself to another man, and then that man finds some uncleanness in her, she can never return back to her first husband, for that would bring abomination to the land, for that would be an unclean thing. So Ephraim, your husband, our Ash, he came and he assumed flesh and he died. Thus the first husband died. And thus now Ephraim, and he has risen. He has been resurrected. And now there is a renewed covenant. There is a Brith Kadashah, Ephraim, whereby now you can be re-engrafted and be rejoined back to your Ash, because he is no longer the same Ash. He is a new Ash. And this is Ephraim. This is the Besorah. This is the true good news, that you, Ephraim, although you were scattered, although you were divorced, you were given a certificate of divorce, although you were put away and dispersed amongst the nations, where you have squandered your inheritance, where you have squandered the firstborn barakah, living amongst the pigs, living as pigs, where in your father's house even his servants are living better than you. Even his servants are clothed better than you. Ephraim, he is looking to and fro from you, speaking the Besorah to you, speaking the Besorah on this Yom, declaring to you, Ephraim, come home, where he has a robe waiting for you, and a ring for your finger, and a kiss from your neck. Come out from amongst the swine. Come out from amongst the pigs. Come out from amongst the nations, Ephraim, and be rejoined to your father, and be rejoined to the house of Yaakov, and be rejoined to the house of Yasharal. Be rejoined to the house of Yasharal. A plea is going forth to you on this day, Ephraim. Awake from the dead. Awake from your sleep, sleeper. Arise, and Yahusha will give you light. Arise, and Yahusha will give you light. Awake to the knowledge of who you are. Awake to the knowledge of who you were born to be. Awake to the knowledge that the blood of Ephraim and Yishak and Yaakov courses through your vein. Awake to the knowledge that the firstborn barakah rests on you. Awake to the knowledge that the firstborn barakah rests on you. You have been dispersed for a long time. dispersed for a long time, and you do not know who you are. You do not know who you are. Awake, sleeper. Awake, Ephraim. Awake, Ephraim. You've been gone for a long, long time. Since 722 BCE, you have been gone for a long, long time. It's time to awake. It's time to awake. Why is it important, Ephraim, that you awake? Why is it important that you awake? Because the firstborn, Barakah, is yours. You are the firstborn. You are the firstborn. Without you, there is no inheritance. Without you, there is no inheritance. And until you are rejoined with the older brother, with Yahudah, and two sticks become one, whereby now the inheritance is one, because you have been rejoined with the older brother. Until that happens, there is no firstborn barakah. There can be no inheritance, because the inheritance it rests upon you. And so we need for you to awaken, Ephraim. We need for you to awaken from your slumber. We need for you to awaken from your sleep. We need for you to come home. We need for you to come home, Ephraim. We need for you to awaken from your sleep, from your slumber, and come back to your father's house, where there is a robe waiting for you, where there is a ring waiting for you, where there is a kiss waiting for your neck, where your father will see you coming from afar off, where he will gird his loins up, and where he will run to you and embrace you and kiss you on your neck. Despite what you have done, despite that you have joined yourself to other husbands, despite that you have been deflowered by other husbands, despite that you have committed adultery, despite that you have committed idolatry, despite that you were a sodomite, despite that you were effeminate, despite that you were greedy of gain, despite that you were a murderer, despite all these things, when you come back to him, these things were who you were, as was some of us. When you come back to our Abba in Ruach and in truth, and are immersed in the true name of Yahushua, whereby having those things washed from you, whereby having your menstrual cycle washed away, whereby having your impurities washed away, whereby having your leprosy washed away, whereby having your running sores cleansed, whereby being cleansed from touching the dead things, whereby being raised to the newness of life, whereby those things were formerly who you were. Come home, Ephraim. Come home. Be immersed in the true name of Hamashiach, and be cleansed from those filthy things that you have partook in amongst the nations, where you have squandered your inheritance, where you have squandered your possessions. Come home, Ephraim. Come home, Ephraim. Come home, prodigal son. Come home, lost son. Come home, younger son. Come home on this Yom. Come home. Come home. Come home. Not until you come home will the house of Jacob be restored. Not until you come home will the firstborn Barakah be whole. Not until you come home can Yasha'al be Yasha'al, because you, Ephraim, you bear the name of Jacob. You bear the name of Yasha'al. He gave you his name. You bear his name. And so Yasha'al, the land of Yasha'al, cannot be Yasha'al without you being in it. The land of Yasha'al cannot be Yasha'al without both Yahudah and Ephraim becoming one. and gathered from amongst the nations and gathered back to our land. But you first must awaken, Ephraim. You first must come home. You are not a Christian, Ephraim. You are not a Buddhist. You are not a Muslim. You are not a Hindu. You are not a Gnostic. You do not practice rabbinical Judaism. You do not. You are Nasarim. You are Nasarim. You are Nasarim. Come home, Ephraim. Come home. Come home. Yahuwah barak you and guard you. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you, show favor to you. Yahuwah lift up his face towards you and give you shalom. Thus you shall put my name on the banim, on the children of Yasharal, and I myself shall barak them. Amen.